Montana, 1876. A widow alone on the frontier. 2 children lost in the worst storm of the century. And a decision that would either save them all or destroy everything she'd built. What happened next? Nobody could have predicted it. Sarah Mitchell stood at her cabin window, watching the sky turn black. She'd seen bad storms before, but this one felt different. Wrong. The wind screamed like something alive, something angry. She had no idea that in less than 12 hours, everything she thought she knew about survival, trust, and humanity itself would be shattered. 3 years ago, she'd fled Boston after burying her husband Thomas. Pneumonia had taken him in a week. The frontier promised escape, a fresh start, a place where grief couldn't follow. She was wrong about that last part. Grief follows you everywhere. But so does something else. Opportunity. The kind that arrives when you least expect it, wrapped in danger and ice. Her trading post sat at the edge of Blackfeet territory. Most white settlers called her crazy for living there. Some called her worse. 4 miles to the nearest neighbor, 2 days to Fort Benton, completely alone, exactly how she wanted it. Or so she told herself. Another bad one coming, she muttered, securing the shutters. The temperature was dropping fast, too fast. Her breath fogged in the cabin despite the fire roaring in the hearth. Something in her gut twisted, a warning she couldn't name. She brought in extra firewood, checked her rifle, locked the door. All the things a woman alone does when the world turns hostile. By nightfall, the blizzard hit with terrifying force. Wind rattled the walls like fists pounding for entry. Snow buried the door. Sarah wrapped herself in blankets by the fire, trying to read, but the words blurred. That unease wouldn't leave. It sat in her chest like a stone. Why this storm? Why this feeling? Sleep came in fragments. Around dawn, she bolted upright. Her heart hammered. She'd heard something. No, she'd felt something. A presence beyond the walls, beyond the storm. Impossible. Nobody travels in weather like this. Nobody survives in weather like this. Then she heard it. A sound that made her blood freeze. A child's voice, crying. Sarah grabbed her rifle and moved to the door. "Hello," she shouted through the wood. The wind swallowed her words. Then came the response. Weak, desperate, young. Without thinking, she threw open the door. Snow exploded into the cabin. The cold hit like a physical blow. She could barely see 3 feet ahead. "Where are you?" she screamed into the white void. A figure emerged from the swirling snow. A boy. Maybe 10 years old. His dark hair crusted with ice. His face gray with cold. Blackfeet clothing. Leggings, moccasins, the kind meant for normal winter, not this hell. His lips moved, but she couldn't hear the words. He pointed frantically behind him. "My sister," he gasped in halting English. "Please, help." Sarah didn't hesitate. She grabbed her heaviest coat and plunged into the storm. The boy led her toward a stand of pines 50 yards away. It felt like 50 miles. The wind cut through her clothes like knives. Ice formed in her eyelashes. She couldn't feel her fingers. How long had these children been out here? How were they even alive? Under the pines, partially sheltered, lay a small girl. Maybe 6 years old. Unconscious. Her breathing shallow. Her skin frighteningly pale. Sarah lifted her. She weighed almost nothing, and turned back toward the cabin. The boy followed, stumbling. The journey back took forever. Sarah's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. "Don't drop her. Don't stop. Don't let them die." They crashed through the cabin door. Sarah laid the girl on her bed immediately, stripping off wet clothing with shaking hands. "Stand by the fire," she ordered the boy. "Now." He obeyed, teeth chattering violently. Sarah wrapped his sister in every blanket she owned, then turned to him. "What's your name?" "Maki," he stammered. "She is Apakuni." "What were you doing out there?" Sarah asked, preparing hot broth with trembling hands. "How could anyone let children wander in this storm? What kind of father—" "We were hunting with our father," Maki said quietly. "The storm came suddenly. He told us to find shelter if we got separated." His voice cracked. We tried. Sarah's throat tightened. They'd been following instructions, doing exactly what they were taught. And now their father was somewhere out there, possibly dead, while she tended to his children. Children who shouldn't be her responsibility. Children who would cause her nothing but trouble if anyone found out. Blackfeet children, in a white woman's cabin, during the worst racial tensions Montana had ever seen. She looked at Maki's face, exhausted, terrified, but determined. She looked at Apakuni, unconscious and fighting for life, and she made a choice that would change everything. You did well, Sarah told the boy. You saved your sister's life. What she didn't say. And now I have to save you both. The first 24 hours were brutal. Apakuni's fever spiked. Her extremities showed frostbite. Dark patches that made Sarah's stomach turn. The girl drifted in and out of consciousness, speaking in Blackfeet, words Sarah couldn't understand. Maki stayed by her side, translating when needed, helping with herbal remedies. His composure was unnatural for his age. War had made him old too fast. Our father is Inaskimi, Maki told Sarah during a quiet moment. It means buffalo stone. He's a warrior. He'll find us. The certainty in his voice was heartbreaking. How many children had faith like that, only to be proved wrong? How many fathers were lost to storms, to war, to the simple cruelty of the frontier? We'll keep you safe until he does, Sarah promised, knowing she might be lying. Outside, the blizzard raged on. Day 2. Day 3. No sign of anyone. No break in the storm. Just wind and snow, and the growing certainty that she was now responsible for 2 Blackfeet children whose father was probably dead. If the settlers found out, they'd call her an Indian lover, run her out, burn her trading post. If the Blackfeet found out a white woman had their children, they might assume the worst. Attack first, ask questions never. She was caught between 2 worlds, both of which wanted her gone. But then something shifted. On the 3rd day, Apakuni's fever broke. Her eyes opened, clear and alert. She spoke softly to her brother, who translated. She says you have a good heart. She asks why you help us. Sarah paused. The question felt heavier than it should. Because it's what anyone should do, she finally answered. But they both knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would help Blackfeet children. Most wouldn't. Most would slam the door and pretend they'd heard nothing. Not everyone would help Blackfeet children, Maki echoed, his young face showing terrible understanding. Sarah met his gaze. Then they've forgotten what it means to be human. When the storm finally broke on the 4th day, Sarah made a decision. She fashioned a tall pole with a bright red blanket as a flag, planted it outside the cabin where it could be seen for miles. Each morning and evening, she fired 3 rifle shots into the air, a signal that might guide Inaskimi to his children. If he was alive, if he was looking, if he hadn't given them up for dead. The days developed a rhythm. Sarah taught the children English words. They taught her Blackfeet phrases. Apakuni recovered with startling speed, helping with chores, her serious face occasionally breaking into shy smiles. Maki remained watchful, protective, a miniature warrior standing guard over his sister. On the 6th day, everything changed. Maki stiffened suddenly, his head tilting. What is it? Sarah asked, her hand moving instinctively toward her rifle. Horses, the boy said. More than one. Sarah's heart rate spiked. This was it. Either salvation or disaster. She grabbed her rifle and followed Maki outside. In the distance, 3 riders approached slowly, leading a 4th horse with a travois. Is it your father? She asked. The boy's face split into the first real smile she'd seen from him. Yes. And my uncle's. Relief flooded through Sarah, followed immediately by terror. What would these men think? Would they believe she'd helped, or would they assume something darker? The frontier was full of stories about white settlers stealing native children, about atrocities committed under the guise of civilization. She stood by her cabin door, rifle lowered but ready, as the riders approached. The man in the lead dismounted with fluid grace, tall, weathered, his face carrying the marks of hard travel. cuts, bruises, several days without sleep, but his eyes, when they found his children, blazed with joy and relief. Maki and Apikuni ran to him, and he knelt in the snow to embrace them, speaking rapidly in Blackfeet, his hands moving over them as if confirming they were real. Sarah waited, giving them their moment. Then the man stood and approached her, his children at his side. Up close, she could see the exhaustion carved into every line of his face, the desperation of his search, the miracle that it had ended successfully. "I am Inaskimi," he said, his English clear but accented. "These are my children whom you have saved." "Sarah Mitchell," she replied. "They're brave children. You should be proud." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, at being spoken to as an equal. One of his companions called out in Blackfeet. Inaskimi nodded and turned back to Sarah. "We have traveled far searching. My companions are tired and cold. May we rest here before continuing to our winter camp?" This was the moment. Sarah could refuse, send them on their way, end this dangerous connection before it grew into something that could destroy her, or she could take another step into the unknown. "Of course," she said, stepping aside. "Please, come inside. There's food and warmth." The 4 Blackfeet men entered with quiet dignity, removing their outer garments and weapons by the door, a gesture of respect and peace. Sarah prepared food while Maki excitedly recounted their ordeal to his father and uncles. She understood little of the Blackfeet being spoken, but the tone and gestures told the story clearly enough. When Maki pointed to the herbal remedies she'd used, Inaskimi looked at her with newfound respect. "You know our medicines," he observed. It wasn't a question. Sarah shook her head modestly. "Only a little. The Blackfeet women who visit to trade have been generous with their knowledge." "You have listened well," he replied. "Many white people do not." The words carried weight beyond their surface meaning. A judgment, a recognition, an opening. After the meal, Inaskimi's companions prepared to continue to the winter camp, a day's ride northwest. But Inaskimi himself made no move to join them. When Sarah questioned this, he said simply, "I must properly thank the one who saved my children. This cannot be done quickly or carelessly." The other men departed with Maki and Apikuni, who hugged Sarah tearfully. Apikuni pressed a small beaded pouch into her hand, a gift made during her recovery. Then they were gone, and Sarah was alone in the cabin with a Blackfeet warrior whose presence filled the small space entirely, not through intimidation, through sheer force of personality, of purpose. "Your journey must have been difficult," Sarah said, breaking the silence. Inaskimi's gaze grew distant. "When the storm separated us, I searched until my horse could go no further. Then I returned to our camp for help." His eyes met hers. "I did not know if I would find them alive." "They're remarkable children," Sarah said. Maki especially showed wisdom beyond his years. Pride flickered across Inaskimi's face. "He will be a leader one day. But now I wish to understand how a white woman came to be living alone at the edge of Blackfeet territory, with knowledge of our ways and a heart open to our children." So Sarah told him. About Boston. About Thomas. About her journey west, seeking something she couldn't name. Escape, purpose, redemption, peace. Things the frontier promised, but never quite delivered. As afternoon became evening, their conversation deepened, each sharing pieces of their lives with unexpected frankness. 2 people who should have been enemies, finding common ground in shared loss and isolated existence. "Tomorrow," Inaskimi said as they prepared to sleep, "I will show you my gratitude in the way of my people." Sarah wondered what that meant, and why the prospect filled her with both anticipation and inexplicable nervousness. What had she gotten herself into? What bridge had she just crossed that could never be uncrossed? Dawn broke cold and clear. Sarah woke to find Inaskimi already up, tending the fire. "I must go to my horse," he said. "There are things I brought for this day." Sarah watched through the window as he retrieved several leather-wrapped items from his saddlebags, handling them with reverence. When he returned, His entire demeanor had shifted. Ceremonial. Formal. Significant. In my tradition, Iniskimi explained as they sat across from each other, when someone saves a life, especially a child's life, it creates a bond that cannot be broken. The one who is saved and their family become connected to the savior. He unwrapped a leather bundle, revealing an intricately beaded necklace of blue and white beads with a polished abalone shell pendant. This belonged to my grandmother. She was a healer among our people. When you tended my daughter with herbs and care, you walked in her footsteps. Sarah hesitated. The gift was clearly precious. Sacred. It's beautiful, but surely too valuable to give to a stranger. You are no stranger, Iniskimi said firmly. You are now part of the story of my family. My children will tell their children of Sarah, the woman who found them in the snow and brought them back to life. He placed the necklace over her head. The shell pendant rested cool against her skin, catching morning light. Thank you, Sarah whispered, touching it gently. I will treasure it. But even as she spoke, she wondered what accepting this gift truly meant. What obligations came with it? What expectations? What dangers? There is more to the tradition, Iniskimi continued. Stories must be exchanged so that each understands the other's journey. Yesterday you told me how you came to this place. Today, if you wish, I will tell you of my path. Sarah nodded, genuinely curious. I would like that very much. Over the next hours, Iniskimi shared his life story. His childhood when buffalo still roamed in vast numbers. His training as a warrior. The changes he'd witnessed as white settlers pushed westward. The loss of his wife to smallpox 3 winters past, leaving him to raise Maki and Apikuni alone. The world is changing faster than many of my people can accept, he said, his voice taking on deeper resonance. I have chosen to learn the ways of the white man, their language, their trading, not because I believe their path is better, but because I must understand it to help my people navigate what is to come. It can't be easy, Sarah observed, standing between 2 worlds. Iniskimi's gaze met hers directly. No easier than for a woman alone running a trading post on the frontier, I imagine. Sarah smiled at that, acknowledging the truth. We each do what we must. As afternoon approached, Iniskimi suggested they step outside. There is something I wish to show you. In the snow beside the cabin, he drew a large circle with a stick, then added lines dividing it into quadrants. This represents the medicine wheel, he explained. It teaches us that life moves in cycles, seasons, sun, and moon. Each direction has meaning, each part connected to the whole. He moved around the circle, explaining: east, spring, beginnings, illumination; south, summer, growth, innocence; west, autumn, introspection, maturity; north, winter, wisdom, completion. Your actions, he told Sarah standing in the northern quadrant, showed the wisdom of one who understands that all people are connected, regardless of skin color or language. This is the highest teaching of the medicine wheel. Sarah listened, moved by his words and the solemn way he shared this sacred knowledge. I've always believed kindness shouldn't recognize boundaries, she said quietly, though I've seen plenty who disagree. In both our peoples, Iniskimi nodded, there are those whose hearts are closed by fear. But there are also those like you who remember the truth, that we are all related. As they returned inside, temperature dropping with evening's approach, Sarah felt her understanding of this man deepen. He wasn't just a warrior or father or widower. He was a philosopher, a keeper of traditions, a pragmatist facing a changing world with both dignity and adaptability. A man navigating impossible circumstances with grace she couldn't help but admire. That evening, after their meal, Iniskimi reached for his final wrapped bundle. Before I go, there is one more tradition to fulfill. He revealed a pipe, beautifully crafted from red stone with a wooden stem decorated with porcupine quills and feathers. This is a sacred pipe among my people. Smoking together seals bonds between individuals and families. It says that what has passed between us is witnessed by the Creator. He prepared the pipe with tobacco and herbs, his movements deliberate and reverent. After lighting it with a coal from the fire, he offered it to Sarah first, a gesture of respect. "You don't have to inhale deeply," he instructed gently. "It is the participation that matters." Sarah took the pipe carefully, following his guidance. The smoke was aromatic and surprisingly smooth, hints of sweet grass and something else unidentifiable. She passed it back to Ineskimi, who smoked, then spoke words in Blackfeet that seemed to rise with the smoke toward the ceiling. "What did you say?" Sarah asked when he finished. "I asked that the Creator continue to watch over you and keep your heart strong. And I pledge that the children of my children will know your name and what you did." They passed the pipe 3 more times in silence, the ritual creating a sense of solemnity and connection that transcended language. When complete, Ineskimi carefully cleaned the pipe and rewrapped it. "Now," he said with quiet certainty, "we are bound by something stronger than blood. My people will know that Sarah Mitchell is a friend who is to be respected and protected." Sarah felt the weight of his words. In a week's span, her life had intersected with his in ways neither could have anticipated, creating connections that defied the tensions between their communities. As they prepared for sleep on their final night under the same roof, she wondered how this encounter might reshape her understanding of her place in this harsh but beautiful territory, and whether their paths might cross again. They would, sooner than she thought, and in ways that would test everything they'd built. Morning arrived with gentle snowfall, large flakes drifting from pearl-gray sky. Sarah found Ineskimi outside, already preparing his horse for departure. "The snow is light," he observed as she approached. "Good traveling weather." They shared a simple breakfast, conversation sparse but comfortable. Then, as he prepared to mount, Ineskimi asked an unexpected question. "Your trading post. Do you plan to remain here through the seasons to come?" The question caught Sarah off guard. "Yes," she answered after considering. "This is my home now. I've built something here that feels worthwhile." Ineskimi nodded, as if confirming something to himself. "Then, I would propose an arrangement that might benefit us both." He explained that his people often traded with military outposts or larger settlements where they received poor compensation for their goods. A fair trading relationship with Sarah's post would provide his band with necessary supplies while offering her unique items of Blackfeet craftsmanship valuable to her other customers. "The winter camp where my people now stay is 2 days' ride northwest," he said. "When spring comes, we will move closer to these foothills for summer hunting. I could direct some of our trading through your post." Sarah recognized both the practical advantages and deeper significance. Such an arrangement would represent a bridge between communities often separated by suspicion and misunderstanding. It would also mark her as different, dangerous, an outsider to her own people. "I would welcome that," she replied sincerely. "Your people will always receive fair treatment here." Satisfaction showed in Ineskimi's eyes. "Then it is settled. When the Snow Eagle returns from the south, you will see me again with goods to trade, and perhaps my children, who would be pleased to visit the woman who saved them." The mention of Maki and Apakuni brought a smile to Sarah's face. "I would like that very much." As Iniskimi prepared to mount, he paused, reaching into a small pouch at his waist. From it, he withdrew a smooth stone, deep black with veins of white quartz running through it. "This is a buffalo stone," he said, placing it in Sarah's palm. "My namesake. It is said to bring protection to those who carry it. Among my people, such stones are considered sacred, found only when they wish to be found." Sarah closed her fingers around the stone, feeling its cool weight. "Thank you. I'll keep it with me." Iniskimi mounted with fluid grace, gathering the reins. "Until spring, then." "Until spring," Sarah echoed. She watched until horse and rider became a distant silhouette against the white landscape, then disappeared entirely beyond a ridge. The cabin suddenly seemed larger and quieter than before. Sarah returned inside, the buffalo stone in her pocket, Iniskimi's grandmother's necklace around her neck. Tangible reminders of an impossible connection formed in the depths of winter. She told herself it was simply a business arrangement, a practical partnership that would benefit both parties, but she knew it was more, much more. The remainder of winter passed slowly. Sarah maintained her trading post, welcoming occasional travelers and settlers who braved the winter trails. To each, she now offered items of Blackfeet craftsmanship, small pouches, moccasins, beadwork, that Inisquimi had left behind. They fetched good prices and garnered admiration. When asked about these items, Sarah would simply say they came from friends among the Blackfeet, a statement that often raised eyebrows, but which she offered without elaboration. Word spread through the scattered settler community. Sarah Mitchell, the widow at the edge of Blackfeet territory, had unusual friends. Some reacted with suspicion, others with curiosity. Harriet Peterson, whose family owned the nearest homestead, rode over specifically to inquire about the rumors. "Is it true, then?" Harriet asked as they sat at Sarah's table. "You harbored Indians in your home?" "I sheltered 2 children who were lost in a blizzard," Sarah replied evenly. "Their father came to retrieve them. There's little more to tell." Harriet's expression revealed skepticism. "And now I hear you're planning to trade with them regularly. Have you considered how that might appear to other settlers? These are dangerous times." "I've considered it carefully," Sarah said, her voice firm but not unkind. "I believe building bridges serves everyone better than fortifying walls. The Blackfeet have occupied this territory for generations. Learning to coexist peacefully seems the wiser course." Though Harriet departed unconvinced, the conversation strengthened Sarah's resolve. The connection she'd formed with Inisquimi and his children represented something important, a small counterpoint to the prevailing narrative of inevitable conflict between natives and settlers. It might cost her, probably would, but some things were worth the price. April arrived with warming winds and the first green shoots emerging from thawing earth. Birds began returning from winter migrations. Sarah found herself watching for snow eagles, remembering Inisquimi's words. One clear morning in late April, as she took inventory of supplies, she heard hoofbeats approaching. Moving to the door, she saw a group of riders cresting the hill. A half-dozen Blackfeet on horseback, leading pack horses laden with goods. At their head rode Inisquimi, flanked by Maki and Apache. Sarah stepped outside, shading her eyes against spring sunshine. The children spotted her first, waving enthusiastically. Apache, looking healthy and vibrant, called out a greeting in English that carried clearly across the distance. Sarah's heart lifted in a way she hadn't expected, hadn't allowed herself to hope for. As the riders drew nearer, she could see that Inisquimi wore formal attire, a fringed buckskin shirt adorned with porcupine quillwork, his hair in 2 braids wrapped with otter fur. He dismounted with customary grace, approaching Sarah with dignity while the others remained at a respectful distance. "The Snow Eagle has returned," he said by way of greeting, a subtle smile softening his features. "And as promised, so have we." "Welcome," Sarah replied, genuinely pleased. "Your timing is perfect. I was just taking stock of what supplies I need for the coming months." Maki and Apache could contain themselves no longer. They dismounted and rushed forward, Apache throwing her arms around Sarah's waist, while Maki, more reserved but equally pleased, stood nearby grinning. "We brought many things to trade," Apache announced proudly. "I helped make the moccasins." Over the next hours, a pattern emerged that would become familiar in months and years to come. The Blackfeet visitors displayed their goods, beautifully tanned hides, intricate beadwork, medicinal herbs, various crafts. Sarah offered fair prices in trade goods: flour, coffee, sugar, tools, fabric. The atmosphere was one of mutual respect and growing trust, a small miracle on the Montana frontier. As the trading concluded, Inisquimi extended an unexpected invitation. "My people wish to meet the woman who saved the children of Buffalo Stone. It would honor us if you would come to our summer camp when the moon is full." Sarah accepted, aware of its unprecedented significance. A white woman, visiting a Blackfeet camp by invitation. Unheard of, dangerous, extraordinary. That evening, as the Blackfeet prepared to depart, they would camp nearby and continue their journey in the morning. Inisquimi and Sarah found a moment to speak privately. "What you have started here," he told her, gesturing to encompass the trading post and the day's activities, "is more important than you may realize. Small bridges between our peoples may someday grow into pathways of understanding." Sarah nodded, sharing his perspective. It won't always be easy. There are those on both sides who prefer distance and distrust. Yes, Inaskimi acknowledged. The path ahead has many obstacles, but we have seen that when necessity brings us together, a blizzard, 2 lost children, a woman with an open heart, something valuable can emerge. As they stood watching the sunset paint the prairie in hues of gold and amber, Sarah reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. A chance encounter during a blizzard had created connections that now promised to reshape her life on the frontier. Where once she had felt isolated, she now stood at the intersection of 2 worlds, with the opportunity to foster understanding rather than division. When the Blackfeet departed the following morning, Sarah watched them go with none of the melancholy she'd felt at Inaskimi's previous departure. This time she knew with certainty they would return, that the bonds formed through compassion and respect would continue to strengthen. And they did. In the years that followed, Sarah's trading post became known as a place where Blackfeet and settlers alike could expect fair treatment. Maki and Apikuni grew into adulthood, often serving as intermediaries between their people and the increasing number of white settlers. Inaskimi's vision of small bridges growing into pathways gradually took form, creating a pocket of coexistence in a time of widespread tension. The challenges never ceased. There were settlers who resented Sarah's Blackfeet connections. There were Blackfeet who questioned Inaskimi's trust in a white woman. Tensions flared. Violence erupted elsewhere in the territory. Treaties were made and broken. The buffalo herds dwindled. The world changed in ways that broke hearts on both sides of the cultural divide. But through it all, that small trading post remained. A beacon of what was possible when people chose understanding over fear, connection over division, humanity over tribalism. Sarah kept the buffalo stone in her pocket and Inaskimi's grandmother's necklace close to her heart. Tangible reminders that sometimes the most profound connections begin with the simplest acts of human kindness. Years later, when Maki became a leader among his people, and Apakuni a respected healer, they would tell their own children the story. About the terrible blizzard. About being lost and freezing. About the white woman who opened her door when she could have turned them away. About how one decision on one winter night had changed everything. And they would teach those children what their father Inaskimi had taught them, that all people are connected, that bridges built on compassion are stronger than walls built on fear, and that in the darkest storms, both literal and metaphorical, humanity shines brightest when we choose to see each other not as strangers or enemies, but as fellow travelers on the same difficult journey. Sarah Mitchell's story became legend, the widow who bridged 2 worlds, the woman who chose kindness when fear was easier, the unlikely catalyst for understanding in an era defined by conflict. And it all began with 2 children, a blizzard, and a choice to open a door that most would have kept firmly closed. If you found this story moving, if it reminded you that humanity transcends boundaries, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that compassion matters, that bridges are stronger than walls, and that one person's courage can change the world. Leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what part of Sarah's journey spoke to you most. And remember, in your own life, when the blizzard comes and someone knocks at your door, you have a choice to make. Make it count. Until next time, keep believing in the power of human kindness.